Alrighty, and we're on.
We're on.
Yeah, literally just like that.
Push of a button.
So Rebecca Fitzgerald is here with me today. Now, you actually, I think you messaged me before and you said, I listened to this episode. And like, it's always very weird for me when that happens. Because, when I do it, I just record the episodes. I don't think about it, right?
Yeah, no, I get that. And I often choose the episodes where I know the person.
Yep.
Or I've met them.
Yep.
Because I'm intrigued. I want to hear. And you ask good questions. So maybe I'm a bit nosy. I'm not sure.
No, that's all right. Well, the whole point of it is sort of to allow people to see, how people go through life, right? Because, your recollection of what happened in your life is one thing. But then at the same time, it's like you're this growing, evolving sort of project of your own at the same time. And so people often look at, where somebody got to in life and think, oh, geez, it'd be amazing to be in that position. But then when you actually like wind it all back, they started in exactly the same place as most other people.
That's true. And I feel like sometimes, especially in like a gym sense, you might meet them in one spot in their life and see them only in that spot. You forget that they do have other parts in their life that make them the person that you met.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're here to talk more about you today.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess for people that don't know Beck, you're into pottery. It's something that you do.
Love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. And
Cool.
then obviously, you're obviously into your Jiu Jitsu and grappling and wrestling and all that sort of stuff as well. And I want to know, how you got into it.
Cool.
And I guess, but to sort of wind it all back for people, like let's start from the very beginning. Where did you grow up? And I guess, like what was life like for you growing up? I might just adjust this video a little.
Cool. I was born in Australia and grew up mostly like South Sydney area.
Yep.
Rabbitohs territory, I suppose, if you want to call it that.
Were you born here?
I was born here,
Yeah, okay.
yep. And grew up here, and I had a pretty easy kind of upbringing, lots of play. My parents are from Singapore.
Okay.
So I did have a lot of cultural influences from a Chinese, Singaporean angle, but also we lived in Australia, so it was like a real mix.
Yep.
Finished school. I feel like the first 20 years of my life were quite boring. I went and studied accounting because I got into it, hated it, worked in it for a little bit, and then studied engineering. And I actually think I went into engineering because my boyfriend at the time was thinking about studying engineering, and I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I was an engineer? So I did it, and I actually finished the degree and then worked in engineering for over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay. Let's slow up because, you sort of skipped 20 years of your life.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so when you say, are both your parents from Singapore?
Both, yeah.
Both. Okay. So my dad was from Singapore.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And my mum was, she's Malaysian.
Yep.
And then, so did your parents meet over in Singapore and then migrated here?
My mum moved here for my dad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's the exchange rate was ridiculously good at the time, so my dad wanted to move to Australia to earn a bit of coin, and then so he moved here. I guess it was a bit of a love story. My mum also just moved to Australia to be with my dad, and then they just never left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so do you have any siblings?
I have a sister. She's younger. Yeah.
Okay. And what's the age gap between you two?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. So then for you guys growing up, were you very close as sisters?
You know what? I feel like 3 years when you're 12 is a lot.
Mm.
We weren't very close. We still looked out for each other and all that, but we weren't super close. And then kind of late teens, 20s, we became really close. And actually Pottery, to tie it back into that, kind of brought us together because we did a class together, and that's how it all started, which I'm sure we'll go into in a minute.
Okay.
But then we just both loved it.
Yeah.
And then we're both quite obsessive compulsive about things. So we just went for it and just wanted to keep doing it all the time.
Yeah. So then for your parents, were they very big on academics? Typical Asians?
Yeah, my dad was,
Yep.
And my mum just kind of went with it. And like, thankfully, my sister and I were relatively book smart. Some of my friends say I'm not so life smart, but book smart and studying, we were kind of good at that. So my parents were happy with that. And then I guess that's how the accounting side of things came about, even though I hated it. But
so did they ever, when it came to like, trying to decide what you wanted to study after school, did they give you any advice, or like was the accounting thing pushed onto you, or was that just something that you thought, it'll be good to do this? Or
it just kind of came up because I got the marks. Like I got good marks, and it just happened. They didn't really push me into it. They wanted me to do something that would get me a good job, and I think that's pretty typical of an Asian family. And my family was no different. I think they thought that people who study commerce and accounting can have a good life because they have
stable income.
Could be true.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah, you didn't work in it very long.
Didn't work in it for long enough, so I'm not sure.
So, when you say that your friends would say that you book smart but not very life smart, there's got to be some stories behind that.
So my nickname during uni was Adelaide because I was always a half an hour behind. And that's quite the more I think about it, it's quite true. Maybe not half an hour, but at least like 5 minutes. I might get a joke later than everybody else. I don't know.
Do you reckon that's because would it be like, pop culture style references and things like that? Or
just
would it
everything, just everything. Sometimes I think my brain just wants to know every single detail. So it's kind of just ticking along, trying to work out the steps. And somebody who's a little bit more high level might just get the joke. Yeah. Whereas I've just got to work it out.
so I can almost like picture this as like, you're out in a social setting with a group of friends and they've all pissed themselves laughing, and then you're like, a minute later.
Basically, I'll come back in later and be like, guys, I got it. And they've probably told 5 jokes in that time, but I got the joke.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, so funny.
Well, the other way that you could put it, you could say you're a time traveler.
Oh, yeah, that's a better way.
You're just a little bit behind.
Yeah. But I must say it does mean that I always remember how the time difference between Adelaide and Sydney.
Yep.
Half an hour.
Oh, there you go.
Always.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then what, out of curiosity, like what would your teachers have said about you in school and things like that?
Probably a bit of a rule follower.
Rule follower?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I still am mostly.
Yeah.
That you can't really squeeze that out of someone, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like I think there's certain traits that are innate in people, right?
Yeah.
And I think it also, like, it's influenced by, what sort of schooling experience you had, and I guess also how your teachers and your parents sort of motivated you to do things.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you can sort of see it, when people are geared towards, getting affirmation and things like that. And there's like the quiet achievers, and then there's all these different styles of personality, right?
Yeah.
Sort of digress a bit. I'm just sort of curious. Do you see that in your own kids as well?
Oh, my daughter. So I've got twins.
Yeah.
They're 5.
Twins. Okay.
Yeah. Have I not told you that before?
I didn't realize they were twins.
Oh, they're twins. Yeah.
Okay.
2 minutes apart.
2 minutes. Okay.
Which I think is quite common these days, as in like a really short age difference between twins, minutes.
Yeah.
Not hours.
The longest one that I heard was 40 minutes. So Colby,
as in a recent.
No, so Colby Thickness, who's fights out of freestyle, one of Volk's training partners. He's a twin, and there was 40 minutes between the two.
So long.
That's a long time when you think about it, right? Like his poor mum.
Yeah. Just like waiting for the second one.
40 minutes.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
My daughter, who's the older of the twins, she's a massive rule follower.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of her in me.
Yeah. And then the other one?
No, you just tell him something, he'll probably do the opposite.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Like they're two totally opposites. It's a real
test of environment versus nature versus nurture. Yeah.
Yep. And then from that perspective, like with twins, do they have like a weird sort of connection where they sort of, get what each other's trying to do? I think
so. Like they're not identical, obviously, girl, boy. So they have different genetic makeup, although from the same parents, obviously. So the test isn't like exactly true. But I still think they have a connection. Yeah. They've known each other longer than I've known them because they were
in your tummy
in my tummy together. Like how cool is that?
Yeah.
I'm super envious. Like I feel like you've got a best friend for life.
Yeah.
And somebody that just gets you. I've never had that.
Was it? And I know like I've jumped way forward in life here, but I'm curious while we're going down this rabbit hole, right? Like when you find out you're having twins, was that a bit of a shock?
Like yes, but no. Something
does
that
it run in your family?
No, it doesn't, and it does. So it doesn't. Like something women don't talk about a lot, but my husband and I had bit of trouble conceiving. So I was quite young. Well,
Yep.
I think I was young. I was 28 at the time,
Yep.
which these days is relatively young. We were trying to have children and it just wasn't working. So we ended up having some help. I went through IVF for about 12 months, which was probably one of the hardest things in my life.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends around me were falling pregnant by just like, I don't know, kissing a boy. I don't know, anything.
Yeah, I think my wife and I fall into that camp. So.
Yeah, well, and it happens all the time. And, I have no hard feelings for couples like that because everyone has their own challenges. But for my husband and I, it was really hard. And emotionally, I wouldn't change a thing because our relationship's super strong because of it. But basically we went through 5 rounds of IVF. And
Wow.
Our doctor was like super shocked. He's like, you're 28. I mean, you're kind of moving on the downward trajectory in terms of fertility, but you're not 40. So something like just super unlucky. So he's like, okay, well, I don't usually do this, but I'm putting 2 embryos back in this time. And so I was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, you're the doctor. And then when he scanned me 6 weeks after pretend conception,
Yep.
He saw 2, and his eyes were just like,
Oops.
fuck. Yeah. Because from a doctor's perspective, their goal is to create one baby at the end.
Yeah.
And having 2 in my tummy growing is risky.
Yeah, okay.
But I was super stoked.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a family of 4, my sister and I, so I kind of know no different.
Yep.
A family is 4 to me.
Yeah.
And because we went through so much trouble, I was kind of like,
Get it done in one go.
Yeah, if there's a higher power out there and that higher power gives me 1 child, I'd be like super lucky. And then this high power gave me 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just 1 boy, 1 girl. How like super lucky is that?
Yeah.
And
So
then,
in Chinese culture, like they always talk about it being is it the character for good is Hao.
Yeah, yeah.
One one girl, 1 boy, right?
So
And
lucky.
Yeah. So if you have a girl and a boy, they call it it's meant to be lucky, right? So,
Super lucky.
yeah.
Yeah, and I've never
Wow.
looked back.
Yep.
Yeah, now they're 5. So
Yeah, it's the IVF thing is a very it's difficult, right? Because I know I have friends who have gone through the same thing, and so you had to do 5 rounds.
5, like that's so stressful. And you know what? Like, I know we weren't going to talk about this, but it's actually quite interesting. I've met a few people in Jiu Jitsu, women who are either going through it or about to go through it. And there's this weird thing, like once you've been through something like that, you can kind of sense it when someone else is about to go through it, and you just kind of know. So I obviously won't name any names, but there's a girl at our gym,
yeah.
at another gym, and the girl I met once, a girl that I was just talking to on Instagram, I just felt it. I was like, she's totally going through it. And then it just comes out in conversation because there's like, I don't know, it's like the stars are just saying you guys were meant to talk about this.
Yeah.
And so I always try and like, I don't want to be nosy. I don't necessarily know the person super well, but what I do know is that shit sucks. Like it's really hard.
Yep.
And I think depending on your situation, it might be like something you've never been through before.
Yeah. And I guess, and we don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but I guess to sort of detail it out, right? Like there's rounds of injections, right? Like you got to take hormones.
Horrific, yeah.
And then like obviously, it's not nice to. I think you got to inject them into your stomach or something, right?
Yeah, into your stomach. And at one stage, I was putting 4 to 5 needles in a day for different reasons. The hormones were meant to do different things, and that to me actually sounded like the hardest part, which it was hard. But at least you could do something about it. Like it's like, okay, tomorrow I've got to do this at 9 o'clock, this at 11 o'clock, this at 3.
Oh, wow. So they're actually timed.
Timed. You've got to do it at certain times, depending on what protocol you're on.
Yep.
And so I guess when you know you've got to do something in a couple of hours, like you feel like you're making progress.
Yeah.
So it actually was kind of the easy part in the whole thing.
Yeah.
The hard part is when you're done.
Okay.
And you're waiting. And there's like a dreaded 2-week wait from when they put the embryo back in to when the hormones would show up in a blood test.
Yep.
And so during that 2 weeks, you're like, did it take? Did it not take? I can't do anything about this right now. Like there's nothing I can do. Like at least with the injections, I'm like, okay, next one, next one.
You got something to focus on.
Something. So in that 2 weeks, you're just like, okay, well, I guess I'll just like take it easy and try not to do anything that's going to, I don't know, impact the success of this embryo taking, which is, I don't know, do I just sit there and do nothing, or do I stay active? Do I like, what do I do?
Yeah.
It's super weird. So the waiting was the hardest part. And I think when I talk to most people who are going through it or about to go through it, I think that they underestimate that as well.
Wow. And then, like, I guess, you know, if you can speak to some of the emotional roller coaster, right? Like, obviously, if it doesn't take, then it's obviously pretty heart-wrenching.
Oh, it's like heartbreaking, and always times when like your best friend's sister happens to fall pregnant at that time, or they get triplets, or like something that's like super exciting for somebody else, but it always just really just it knocks you back down.
Yeah. And
then you've just got to wait until your body regulates itself and it's ready to do the next cycle, and then you just go again, or you don't.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think one thing that absolutely killed me, we ended up thinking about whether adoption was an option at some point. I was like, man, I'm 28, like 4 times it's not working. Let's explore another avenue. You actually can't sign up to some adoption agencies unless you prove that you're not undergoing fertility treatment, in case both paths work, and then you disappoint the adoption agency. So then I was just like, oh, so I can't even try and adopt somebody or go on the wait list if I'm still going down this path of a possible IVF success story. Anyway, it was worth every single needle and every single tear and everything. And I actually promised myself at the time, if I were lucky enough to get 1 child, or 2 in this case, that I wouldn't stay silent about it, because I think there are, and maybe I just think it's not something that people talk about enough. And it might not be IVF, but it could just be, it could be a different story. The statistics are quite high for miscarriage, or maybe mums want to have a baby but they don't have a partner, or whatever it is. Like, everyone's got their own thing, and people don't talk about it enough. Yeah. So if I could just do my part and talk about it sometimes, I think that's enough. I made the promise to myself.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice promise to keep, because I think, and one of the fortunate or unfortunate, you know, outcomes of me doing this podcast is, like, I have very little tolerance for small talk. Like, you know,
you want to get deep?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I would.
I'm one of those, you know, like, you know, apologies to anybody that meets me for the first time at a party and gets stuck in a conversation with me, but we're gonna go deep. You know, like,
deep. It's actually interesting as well, like how the female brain works, especially I think in maybe it must be mid-20s, late 20s. Most women at that age, they're thinking about kids, whether they have a partner or not. And I'm not saying they're thinking about kids tomorrow, but they know that they have a window, and they know that, I don't know, maybe it's a feeling, or I'm not sure if it's education or what it is, but they know that they have a time cap, and so there's a little bit of a rush. And people know that, but what they don't know is that when you choose to start going down that path, you might hit 10 hurdles even in your 20s, because it's quite common in your late 30s, right? Yeah. People know, it's going to be a bit tricky.
You know, once you're over 35, they call it a geriatric pregnancy.
I know, how sad's
right?
that?
Like, it sounds horrible. A geriatric pregnancy.
Thankfully,
it's like
I wasn't
35,
geriatric.
right?
I know, like, you're not that old, right? Please say it's not old. Yeah.
They put you through more scrutiny, and then they're, you know, really testing you on the diabetes stuff and all that sort of stuff. It's like, wow, okay.
Horrendous. I mean, I've had a few girls who are like, oh, I'm thinking about having kids in the next 3 years. When that happens, I want to keep training. Can you train with me? I'm like, of course I'll train with you. Yeah. Like, if you decide that that's what you want to do, and we're talking Jiu Jitsu, obviously, we can work around it. Like, well, I get it.
Okay, let's digress, because actually, before we digress, I want to ask you about this, because you mentioned something about going through that process really helped to strengthen your relationship with your partner. Yeah. Can you just share some insights on that? Like, obviously, because you go through so much, the highs and lows, right? But I guess, was it because, you know, knowing that he's got your back and you're there for each other? Like, what was it about it, that whole process, that you think helped to strengthen your relationship?
It's definitely the highs and lows. Like, and you want to blame something when things don't go right. And in this case, in our case, we didn't have, either of us weren't to blame as such. And even if there was a medical reason for this or that, like even if there was somebody to blame, there's somebody that you care about, you don't really want to blame them as such. But there's that weird thing. It's like, oh, well, was it me? Like, did I not eat well that week, or did I have a glass of wine and it like stuffed up our chances, or like, I don't know. Did you run too much? And then like my husband's into running. Did you do too much exercise and so your testosterone levels were too, like, I don't know, like what is it? You're just making stuff up, and both of you are thinking through all this stuff, and then obviously you're on this journey together where there's medical explanations for some things and then no explanations for other things. You're both working, you've still got the stresses of all of that. You're tired. Oh, and then the bloody hormone rush, like with all of the stuff that was going into my body. Like, I don't know, I would cry at the most ridiculous things. I'd get angry. I'd get, all these kinds of things. All thrown together in a huge mess. So I wouldn't surprise me if IVF was a huge reason for a lot of couples breaking up, because it's really bloody stressful. But I wouldn't change anything. Yeah.
Okay. So to sort of get back to the other question that I wanted to ask, because who was it? Quinn was saying to me, I don't know how Beck does it, being a mum and then doing all this other stuff and then still being able to train. So let's talk a little bit about the Jiu Jitsu journey, and we can come back, and I've sort of gone out of chronological order anyway, so we might as well just barrel down whatever rabbit holes we want to go down. But so when did you actually first start getting into martial arts?
When I was going through IVF, I started, and so I'm a very obsessive compulsive person. So if I'm going to do something, I'll do it properly. And I met this guy walking to Pottery one day, Joey from Bulletproof for BJJ. He owned the gym that was next door to my Pottery studio. Okay. And they were all doing all this cool shit like handstands and ring muscle ups and just tricks. And I'm like, what's going on in there? Like, I'm pretty strong. Yeah. Sure, I can do some of that stuff. So he invited me in, and then in a matter of like a week, I was a member. Okay. And it was a great distraction because I was going through a bit of a tough time. So I was just getting like super strong. And they focus on mobility and flexibility and a whole range of other things there. And then they opened up the Jiu Jitsu arm of the gym, and I was like, nah, I'm too old for this. Like, to start in my late 20s, something so physical. Yep. But I got convinced to try. And so I did. I loved it. But I'd only done a few classes over a few weeks when my embryo took. And then I was just like, oh, well, I can't stuff this up now. Yep. You got to take it easy. So I'm going to take it easy. So I actually told my coach at the time that I was possibly, like, I was pregnant at 4 weeks, which is like ridiculously early to be telling people. Yep. But then like it got a little bit weird because like I didn't know how, I just didn't know what I could and couldn't do. And also I was so scarred by the journey we'd been on to get to that point that I was just like, I'm not risking anything. Yeah. And so all the weirdness came from me. So I actually just stopped. And then I came back once I had my kids. My husband used to like force me out the door to train. And so that was 4.5 years ago. And then I slowly like became more obsessive again. Yeah. And here I am. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to do it. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, it's I think like people that have like a bit of that. I think everybody can have that obsessiveness. It's just you got to choose what you channel it into.
Yeah, I think so. And if it's a good thing like sport or exercise or something, obviously it's great. Yeah. But other people can go down different paths and And it's like, in all honesty, I think they're so closely related. Like that, you can be obsessed about martial arts, but then you could also. I could apply that same obsession to video games, right? Yeah, and it could be anything.
And then like just be stuck at the computer for like. Look, I probably do that sometimes, occasionally. If I know I can get away with it, I'll like stay up till 2 a.m. playing a game or something like that. So funny. And then suffer the consequences for it the next day, and then promise myself, almost like a gambler, right? Don't do that again. Like it just wrecks you the whole next day, and then you're struggling with the kids, and it's always going to be that time where it's like, you think that things are going so smoothly, and then it's like literally like 2:05, you're like trying to creep into bed, and then the baby wakes up.
Shit.
Fuck.
I was meant to be asleep by now.
and then you're like, oh, now I got to stay up for longer. It's like, yeah, it's self-inflicted. Like,
Yeah. Can't blame anyone except yourself.
Yeah, so I cop it from my wife all the time. Sorry, wife. But yeah, like, that sort of mentality, like, I think there's so many things that I could get obsessed with. I just have to sort of limit, my choices in terms of what I choose to do or not do. And like, I'm that kind of personality where it's like, you're all in or you're nothing. So
it's the same, right? As me.
Yeah.
Like totally all in. So with Jiu Jitsu, it's doing Jiu Jitsu, but it's also thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like planning what you want to do the next training session or whatever it is. Like your mind is all consumed.
Yeah. So were you other, I guess when you were growing up and things like that, were there things that you got obsessed with? Like,
any sport I really played, I was kind of the same. So I did netball and touch football.
Yep.
I played touch football at a rep level.
Oh, wow.
For, I don't know, maybe 10 years.
Okay.
It's probably where I ruined my knees, I think. But I loved it. Probably did it, I don't know, every day up until 28 or something like that.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And so what was it about touch football that was so fun and exciting? Did you have the same team for that majority of that time?
Yeah, a lot of it was the team thing. It's great. Just the problem solving, the tactics around it, the cardio associated with it. I loved that. Also, it's a sport that I didn't really play up until 18 or something. So I just loved being able to throw a football and strategically get the ball over the line.
Yep.
Without it being too physical.
Yeah.
Because touch football is not
Yeah.
overly physical.
Yeah. Is it still touch football nowadays, or is it all like OzTag and stuff?
So there's both.
Okay.
They're separate.
Yep.
I'm really shit at OzTag,
Yeah.
which sounds weird, but they're completely different
Well,
strategies.
there's an art to trying to capture those tags, right? Like,
yeah, and it's a bit slower because you stop tag. You've got, I think,
Yeah,
I
they
don't
gotta
play a
put
lot of OzTag. They've got to like touch it with their foot when they roll it. There's markers. There's more people on the field.
Yeah.
I think there's rules around you can't dive with, you can't put your knees down before you dive. Like it's like heaps, it's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And
then
touch football's quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, so when you say you're playing like almost like representative level
Yeah.
touch football, like how does that how do the divisions work? Like,
So there's club level, and then when you play at those comps, there's levels obviously at the comp.
Yep.
And then there's nationals, which I made the national mixed team once, not Australia. I mean like regions, and I couldn't make the team again after that. But I'm a bit scarred by it. I let one short side try and one at nationals.
yeah.
It's like so ingrained in my head.
So it still burns you.
It still burns me. And
So okay, you got to paint the picture. So what's happened? Were you playing on the wing or where were you?
So in this team, I was a winger.
Yep.
You generally have like a short side winger and an open side winger, and I was the short side winger. So basically, you don't let any tries in short side.
Yeah.
That's your only job.
Yeah.
Your one job.
Yeah.
And to score tries, 2 jobs. And I'd killed myself to make this team. I remember it was the last spot was between me and this other girl who I absolutely love. And we were training for this position. So we were in the squad together. And basically we were neck and neck for this spot. And my coach was, so he was watching everything we did. And this thing that's like in my head was this beep test. So we did the beep test as part of cardio training. And basically because we were both going for this spot, it's kind of like, well, we both have to I have to stay in longer than her if I want this spot, right?
Yeah.
Obviously I have to perform on the field, blah, 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 but we're neck and neck. And so I'm like, she's quick too. And I think I beat her by 0.1, like 1 extra run.
Yep.
Anyway, I made this team. And then I just didn't want to fuck up at the actual tournament. And so I think it was the semi-finals, and basically I might not make it. If you stuffed up in this game, you wouldn't make the finals because they cut 2 people for the finals. And I let a short side try in. And I like dove so far to try and touch her leg. Yeah. I still missed. I think I winded myself. Like it was I like launched myself. And then my coach just looked at me. I was like, he didn't say it, but he's like, you had one.
disappointment.
You literally had one job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got dropped from that team. I didn't make the final. That was really hard. My husband actually played in the middle in the final. He was in my team as well.
Okay.
Which was really hard as well.
Yep.
Obviously,
so then
I
you're
wanted
there
to play.
watching,
I'm
and then
watching.
you're like gutted that you
Yeah.
messed up.
I messed up. And then I never made the team again.
Was he good about it, or did he like? I don't know if you guys are competitive in your relationship. Like, and the reason why I say that is because my wife gets very competitive about like the stupidest games.
Oh yeah, of course.
And
must
so it's
win
like,
everything.
Yeah, like it'll be things like the arcade where you throw the basketballs in the hoop.
Oh,
thing,
you've got to win that.
and she'll smash me in that, and then she'll like hold it over me, and then it'll be like bowling where she'll like hardly ever bowled in her life, and then bowls like I don't know, I can't remember if it was like a 147 or something like that, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is like literally like what is this shit, right? And then, but if it was like anybody else playing, then she'd probably like go to water. But just because she's
so
versing
funny.
me, she has to try and smash me.
I'm exactly the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but in this case, there's a certain number of spots for male players and a certain number of spots for female players in any team.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like not really a competition.
Yeah.
If that makes. I was so happy that I got to play the final, and I think he actually played really well.
Okay.
But it's just shit for me.
Yep.
But, stuff happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So I want to go back to your foray into accounting before switching to engineering, right? So you went into accounting at uni first, and then it was just like, okay, I hate this shit, or
yeah, so boring. I actually loved it at uni, but in working it felt quite boring because it was very regimented.
Okay.
And I get like I was junior, probably got all the shitty jobs, so it was probably not that exciting, but I didn't love it.
So wait, did you get a job in accounting while you were still studying?
While I was studying, so they're called cadetships.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one of the big four, or where?
Yeah. KPMG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you went there, it was just like you just hated it, hated the environment.
The
people would have been good.
People were great to work for, and accountants they drink a lot. Like there's heaps of parties and stuff, so it was fun when I was 20.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the work, and I couldn't see myself doing it forever.
Yep.
So tried something else.
So okay, that's a pretty big call, right? Like a lot of people vie for those cadetships.
I know. I felt so bad.
so you got to share a story, because it's like one of those things. And I'll share this story because like when I started working as an apprentice mechanic, so I was on my pathway and I was studying uni at the same time. And then when I thought I would do, I started looking at like some legal jobs just because I was studying law as well. And I wanted to sort of just to sort of work out, okay, is this the right pathway that I'm on? Like, do I want to go down the automotive pathway, or should I try something else and potentially do the legal thing? And I got an opportunity to do like a contract role at a pretty good law firm, and I'd just started my apprenticeship, and so it was like, oh shit, what do I do here? And I was thinking, maybe I can like just okay, I wouldn't have just been started. I might have been like maybe half a year or a year in.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was thinking, maybe I'll just like take a couple of weeks of leave and I'll go do this other job, and then because it could lead to a better opportunity, blah blah blah. So at first I took it, and then I thought about it a little bit more, and I think there must have been a conversation with like the boss of that dealership, because he was a bit of a mentor to me, and like he would have said something along the lines of, you got to pick what you want to do and focus, kind of a thing. But he was saying that not in relation to me doing law, me doing automotive. He was saying that in relation to, because like he knew I was always into martial arts, and he was just basically like, there's no money in martial arts, mate. Like, what are you thinking? Like, just his example was like he was really good at golf, and so he was like, I had the opportunity to probably play professional golf, and I don't regret my decision. I instead chose to obviously get on the dealership pathway, and now he owns like all these businesses, and he makes however many millions a year, and I play golf whenever I want. And like I guess I would say in essence, like that has probably been the pathway for me. Like I went down the business pathway instead of the martial arts pathway, but now I am in a position where I just do martial arts whenever I want.
Yeah, how good.
Which is weird, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't have to, necessarily, put my body on the line and pursue, fighting hardcore and doing all that sort of stuff. Back in those days when the money's even worse than it is today. So it's funny now that I reflect on that, like that sort of mirrored that. But to go back to that other story, I'd said yes to this recruiter, and then I called her back like literally the Friday before the Monday.
Actually, no.
Yeah, and she was ropeable. right? Like she was
of course, though. I mean, she's put effort in to get you there.
And like it's a notable firm. And so she basically said, Johnny, you know, you realize if you turn me down on this job, you'll never work in this field again.
So, yeah, I get it.
And I was like, yeah, I feel really bad, but yeah, that's my choice.
That's my choice.
And then that was the end of my legal career.
Gone.
Yeah. Never look back. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's for some people, right? But not for everybody.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, was there any of that when you decided, hey, I'm going to turn my back on this career shit?
Because and not even specific to the business as such. Like a business is that business is a monster.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel
bad about
the business, but people put time and effort into you, and so I was there for a couple of years, and so I felt bad to the people rather than anything. Like they wasted 2 hours here, there, like wasted.
Well, it's a shock for them too, right?
Yeah.
They're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Because they don't.
I can't understand it.
Well, because they're not in your head.
Yeah.
They just see you come to work, and I still put 100% in when I was there to learn and all of that.
Yep.
And then they're like, but why would you do this if you are just going to walk away? And don't you get it? Like some people want to, like, would kill for this position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. So when you resigned, was there any sort of weird conversations that came up out of it? So because like you would have had to say to your manager, hey, I'm quitting.
Yeah. I think it was okay because it was to pursue something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I said I'd stay in touch and all that, and I did with some of the people there, which was pretty cool. But I had a great experience there, and it's still shaped some of the stuff that I do or am interested in these days. It's just not specifically accounting, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then, had you done a couple of years of your accounting degree then, and then
I actually finished it.
Oh, you finished it?
Yeah, I told you I go 100.
Okay, so you finished your accounting degree, and then you decided to go and do something else.
I finished it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I'm an accounting graduate.
Okay. Did you do your CA or your CPA or anything?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank God I didn't start, because then I would have had to finish it.
Hey, I like that as a recurring theme, right? Like whatever you start, you got to go through and see through.
It's pretty funny.
So then the engineering thing. So talk me through that.
Oh yeah. So engineering's weird in your first year because you don't specialize. You just kind of do like a lot of maths and science and stuff, which I actually loved. It's great. And then you kind of got to choose which path. And I specialized in renewable energy, which is so hippie. And it was a little bit hippie back then in that the jobs that came out of it were, let's try and make this a bit more green, or how do we make this sell a little bit better so it's greener. But when I finished that, I went into sustainability consulting and then engineering buildings as well. Okay. I did that for 12 years, had my kids, and then now I work in a sustainability role 2.5 days a week.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're still in the
I'm still in it. I'm super lucky that I think it was a bit of leftover COVID mentality, but also just the general industry shift to being able to keep parents, or specifically women, but just parents in general, in the workforce.
Yep.
2.5 days was allowed. And I haven't had any negative feedback on it from anybody. So I work 4 days, 4 hours a day or 4.5 hours a day. Yep. Super flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm trying to essentially, like, put really simply, trying to reduce the carbon emissions and of this business.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay. Where did you study your engineering degree?
UNSW.
UNSW.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what was the first job that you did from the engineering side of things?
I went into consulting straight away.
Straight into consulting?
Yeah. And stayed at the same business for the 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you find that experience moving into consulting?
I didn't mind it. I liked it. Obviously, I stayed there so long.
Yeah.
I probably stayed there a little bit longer than I would have, just because I had my kids there when I was there, and so it was just easier.
Maternity leave.
Maternity leave was great. Actually, that's one thing about twins that sucks.
You only get one set of maternity leave, even though you got 2 kids.
That's right.
Oh, there you go. Government, listen up. Should double the maternity leave.
Yeah, so even like the time and the pay.
Yeah.
So it's both, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm still dirty about that. And yeah, so I stayed there for quite a long time. I really struggled with the gender diversity thing there. I was the only female in my team, my engineering team, for a really long time. And I found that really hard.
So, sorry, when you say you struggled with the gender diversity thing, so what do you mean by that?
I kind of treat people as people, so it wasn't that side of things, but it was more just fighting. I felt like I was fighting a big corporate. I was part-time at the time, so it was probably like year 8 or 9, and I just felt like I was different because I wanted to work part-time. And that was just kind of inherent in the fact that the rest of my team were male. Yeah. So and hadn't chosen either, hadn't tried to have kids yet, or hadn't had a family yet, or hadn't decided to try and work part-time yet. So yeah, it was tough. And then the pay, being at the same business for that long, like my pay was kind of stagnating. I had a couple of, actually I'm just going to tell the story. So I was a manager of this team. I had like 16 people in my team, and they happened to all be male at the time, which is slightly relevant to the story. And I'd just come back from maternity leave at 3 days a week, and your manager has to, when someone gets promoted, gives out the promotion letter and says congratulations, blah, 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 blah. So I got given a promotion letter for a guy in my team by my manager, and had their pay on it and their new title. And obviously, like, I was meant to know that their pay and new title, but that guy was being promoted to a level lower than me, and he was being offered more money than me. And so, like, obviously the first thing that comes into my mind was like, what the fuck? Yeah. And then secondly, like, your mind goes down rabbit holes. And the first rabbit hole I jumped into was, this is because I'm a mum and I'm part-time and I'm female. And I think that's a very natural thing to think. And it definitely looked like that. I'm not saying it was that, and I never will know for sure. Yeah. But it definitely looked like that. And we were basically we just started going into COVID, and I felt like the most selfish person in the whole world. But I brought this up at work, people losing jobs and stuff, right? But I was like, I need to stand up for this. So I went to my boss at the time and I said, hey, like,
is this right?
Like, in a more PC way, what the fuck? Yeah. And he was like, well, this isn't right. Let's fix it. It took them 18 months to not even match it. It was still like a little bit under, but attempt to fix it. And like, I acknowledge that COVID was a tricky time for a lot of businesses, and giving pay rises during that time was not an easy thing to do, but it never really got fixed. And from my perspective, it just felt unfair. Yeah. And I got by the end of that, like, that's every day for a couple of years. Like, you just get sick of it. And so I just left. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. So I had a similar experience when I was working for Toyota. I was in a role called a district sales manager. It's like an area sales manager. And so you look after your responsibilities, a certain amount of dealerships in a certain area in New South Wales. And because when I joined Toyota, I didn't come in as like a grad or anything like that. I actually like went straight into a proper role. Okay. Because of my connections from working at the dealership and my mentor, who basically got me in the door, right? And so when I got into this capacity, like here I was, and I was quite young at the time, and I think there was a point where I pulled up my manager and I just said, hey, I reckon I'm the lowest paid district sales manager in the country. And then, like, you know, my manager's really good about it. He's just like, nah, you can't be, blah, blah, blah. And I go, I was like, hey, look into it, right? And if I'm wrong, I'll eat my fucking words.
Yeah, and were you?
Huh? I wasn't wrong because the next pay bump I got was significant.
Yeah,
right. And
you had to bring it up, and I think that's
But like, I think that's the culture in most busises. What business wants to go and say, oh, hey, you know, you deserve more money, and you deserve more money, and you deserve more money.
What can I get away with until, how long and what can I get away with? Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think, you know, that actually promotes a really negative culture when it comes to performance, and like I think, you know, it's almost like a running joke the way that most companies conduct their performance appraisals, right? Because it's like, oh, you know, you might have a requirement, depending on the company that you work for. Some might say, oh, yeah, we're going to do it every 3 months, or we might do it half yearly or annually or whatever. And, you know, like, because it's like, oh, you're waiting all this time to then have this discussion that seems like it's more just like for face value as opposed to anything actually legitimate. So that actually became something that I was really focused on before I left Auto. Was like, it was really important for me to catch up with my employees one-on-one once a month. And like when when I first started that process, you could really see like guys shitting themselves and girls shitting themselves when they first come into that office, because they'd be like, oh, have I done something wrong?
What have I done?
Yeah. And so then when I actually explained the process behind it, then they actually got it. And it's like, oh, okay, so we've now got access to Johnny as a mentor and all of these different things. And he wants, like, I would ask them questions about what are their goals, like financially, what are their goals in life? Because, for me to sort of work out where people are going to go in my business, I need to know what it is that drives them, and I need to know where.
Yeah, it seems irrelevant, but it actually is very relevant because it gives you an insight into where what they're thinking.
Yeah,
yeah, and the longevity of their
that employment.
Yeah,
right. Because and there's nothing wrong with somebody who doesn't want to do anything more than just be a mechanic.
That's okay.
Right? Yeah. Right, yeah. Because there's some people that are really good on the tools, but probably don't enjoy talking to people or don't enjoy the social aspect.
Yeah, and if they're loving it and then why spend all the time trying to work out where else they can go in the business when they actually don't want to go there?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the sad thing about most businesses is that when it comes to promoting somebody who's a great employee and trying to turn them into a manager, we often look at either the result or tenure. They're the two things that are the most common reasons why people get promoted. But the problem is that results and tenure doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good manager.
Yeah. Also, they might not want to.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, like, that was something that I then became something cultural that I like to put in, is just like, in business it's really important to catch up with people and actually know, okay, where is it that they want to go? Yeah. And then, you got to work that into your bigger plan. And it depends on the capacity that you're in. Like if I'm just an employee, then it's a different focus. But then if I'm like looking after people or I'm responsible for people, then it's a different focus, right?
Yeah.
So when it came to, I guess like, for you in that position where it's like, you feel hard done by, right? Like there's only so much you can take.
Yeah? Oh, and it was just ruining me.
Yeah.
And stupid. Like I think back and I'm like, I didn't necessarily need the extra money. I'd been living off what I'd been getting paid for X amount of time.
Yep.
But it was just more a principle thing.
Yeah.
And then everything would come back to that principle when I was doing something at work, to the point where I was just always thinking about it. And I had kids at the time. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I don't even really care about the money. I've got enough, like whatever that means for everybody is different, but I had enough because I was getting paid a certain amount. Mm. And obviously there's a lot going on in the world at the time, COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So I was just like, why am I even spending time like thinking and mental capacity thinking about this? Yeah. And so I just had enough. So I just left. Yeah. Waited till I got my long service leave, obviously.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing, because like if you didn't know any better, you would have just happily operated.
Exactly. But it was more the unjust thing. And it had absolutely nothing to do with the actual guy who was getting paid more than me. Like I really like him. Yeah. Even to this day. He's a nice guy. He's always done well by me. It was just more the principle. And sometimes I have convinced myself that it was just a product of being in a business for so long, a giant beast of a company and a bit of a shit time for businesses. And so nothing could be done. I try not to dwell on the fact that it could have been somebody stopping me from getting a pay rise. Like I don't really think it was that. It's just kind of just happened over time, unfortunately.
Well, when things happen, like there's typically three pathways it could be, right? It's either incompetence, it's negligence, or it's malevolent, right? So,
I mean, I could have been incompetent, but that's a fair.
No,
like,
somebody else,
true.
like the HR team could have been incompetent,
or somebody else. Yeah, true.
Right?
But it could have been me too, but no one just told me. Yeah. Like, I don't think I was. Hopefully, I wasn't.
Well, now's the time to reach out, people. If you think Beck's incompetent,
if you think she was a shit engineer, raise your hand. I mean, it could be true, but then that brings other management questions, like why was nobody supporting her to become a better engineer? If that was really it.
The reality is, if it is incompetence, typically you'd be managed as a result of that, right? Like you'd be getting warning letters, you'd get all those sorts of like performance.
True. So I wasn't terrible. So I could have been average.
You could have been just above the line of non-performance, where it's like, okay, we'll give her a pass.
She's good enough. Yeah.
So then, if it's not incompetence, then it's like it's negligence. Like they just didn't do their due diligence. They didn't look at, okay, what are the bands? And like for example, that was the case for what mine was. It was just like the way that I joined the company was probably a little bit different to how some other people had joined the company. And so, there are pay bands depending on what level you are. And so, it was just one of those things. So I put mine down to that it was negligence. I didn't think anybody was out to try and rob me of my pay.
No, like I don't think anyone's that horrible. Well, I don't know, maybe that's me being naive, but I don't think anyone is that horrible. I'm going to like ruin Beck's life.
Yeah.
I think people have got other things to worry about than that. But sometimes it just happens like that, right?
Yeah.
And it really got to me at the time.
All
But
right.
honestly, best thing that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, allowed you to find something else, right?
Yeah,
Like,
which I wouldn't have done.
yeah.
Yeah.
If everything was good.
Especially like being as a part-time mum, like
Mm.
you think, oh, I'm part-time. I get to do I get to spend time at home and all these other things. Like I've got it so good.
Mm.
You can get that anywhere now.
Yeah.
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 Almost anywhere.
Almost anyway. Yeah, I think, and I want to go back to one point that you made about like, for guys in the workplace, right? Yeah, there's a very distinct change that you have. Well, hopefully that you have. I'm not saying every guy goes through this, but before you have kids versus after you have kids, right? For me, there was definitely a defining moment where it's like, okay, in my 20s, like I could work 7 days a week and not bat an eyelid because all I valued was success and
success to you was
trying to get
working,
to whatever position
yeah.
and trying to earn whatever money and all that sort of stuff. And then, after having kids and then, and I think a lot of people woke up during COVID, like having the opportunity to be at home and spend more time with their kids.
Yeah, so good.
Right? So a lot of dads realized just how much they were missing out on. Right?
Even just like being at home.
Yeah.
Like not even if you're by yourself. Like there's so much good stuff that comes from just being at home.
Yeah.
Which COVID also brought.
Yeah.
Even if you people for people who didn't have families at the time.
Mm.
But yeah, that's changed the shift, I think, since then to now, which is what's that been like 3 years of how fathers are treating the workplace versus home and the adoption of parental leave. Most of the big companies allow dads to take it as well.
Yep.
And then just general businesses allowing it. It's become more and more, which is super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So like when I reflect back on that, like I wouldn't change a thing. I think, before you have family and kids, like work your fucking ass off, chase those goals because when you have something that comes around, you don't want to, and that was like, I would say it's like a common trap in the automotive industry where it was like, I'd see, I'd always call them industry statistics, like guys that might have been married and then end up not married because they just always at work. And they're thinking like the best thing I could do for my family is to make as much money as possible. But then all their partners and their kids want is just time with dad.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I can't make any more time.
Yep.
It's just impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same thing, right? Like, so, for mums, like I feel for mums, especially like when I look at my wife and, because you sort of, there's this almost like a push where if you're a female, you shouldn't be satisfied with just being a mum, right?
I know, but isn't it awesome if you're a mum? Like, and if you choose, that's the only thing you want to do in that period of your life. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that actually takes guts.
Yeah.
Because you've got to stop the whatever you're doing.
It's a sacrifice.
And not just like the career stuff. Like it's time alone on the bus. It's, reading up on things that you're interested when you're on the train or whatever. Or it's having a quick coffee with somebody at work or just going to the toilet by yourself. Like, but it's like seriously true. Like there's a lot of sacrifice and guts to being just a mum. I haven't had the guts to do that yet. I just keep reducing my hours.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's a really interesting sort of balance. But like, I feel like society really like pushes this narrative that you got to be able to do it all and you got to be able to have it all.
Yeah, no.
And it's like, but that's not reality, right?
No, it's not.
Like, and like, I know there's probably people that look at me and probably think that way about me, but it's like, but I went through some pretty like tough times too. Like I went through a period where I just was not working, like did nothing for like 2 years apart from train. And
but it sounds terrible. I get you.
Right? It sounds terrible.
It sounds absolutely terrible.
But like when society's like, so what do you do, right? What do I say to people in that period, right?
Nothing.
I'm unemployed.
Yeah, I'm a bum. But that's what it sounds like. Yeah. But it's not that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you work, like whenever you try and chase something different, you have to, almost like doing your apprenticeship all over again. You got to start all over, right? Just like, for you going through accounting and then going into engineering, it's like start all over again. You know, you're already 2 years down this pathway and it's like, oh, look, that wasn't the right road for me. Turn around, head back to the fork, and then let's go down the other fork and see where that goes. Whilst we're talking about, and it's probably this, I don't know if this is going to be a boring topic for people, but I'm interested to ask about it when it comes to, given that it was your background to talk about, you know, reducing emissions and
I love this. I love this stuff.
So let's talk about it. All right, let's talk about renewables.
Okay. I actually love talking about it more at like a home level than because all the stuff I do at work is very like corporate.
Corporate, yep.
Just sustainability in general. Like I make our home as sustainable as possible. I try and bring that into the way I bring my kids up.
Yep.
Simple things that people don't even think make a difference. And you know what? They probably don't make a huge difference on their own, but if everyone did it, it would.
Yep. So give some examples here.
Like we hardly have any rubbish.
Mm-hmm. So you don't buy items that are single-use plastics, or
try not to, and we pay for some Recycle Smart to come and take the single-use plastic away to recycle when we can't avoid it.
Yep.
Which is in this day and age is normal. Like pretty much everything comes in single-use plastic. So all of our organics go into, we've got 2 worm farms in the front garden, which the kids absolutely love. They always touch the worms and I'm like so grossed out about it, but like they do love it. So we put all of our veggie scraps and stuff in there. We just try and live by secondhand type stuff and as simply as possible at home.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, was that a conscious choice that you made just having, you know, studied that in uni, or was this something that you and
your I think it was just like learning about it. Humans have such a big impact on the world, and like all the cool things that kids see when they're growing up. And I guess adults kind of, the focus when you're an adult is less, but things like nature. Like my kids pick up leaves and it's the coolest leaf ever. Like we stood around a scribble bark tree the other day for like 15 minutes, like looking at the tree, animals, like everything. I'm like, everything we do impacts all of that. And like ever so small, but like we have one chance, and if we fuck this up, then all those cool things that humans or kids think are cool won't be here at one point. And like it's kind of a sad story, and there's not really anything that one individual can do about it, but you can try. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I feel like the whole, like, you know, the nature of weather and the climate and the environment is always changing anyway, right?
It is. And I think, like, I mean, the climate skeptics would have a million counters to everything that I would say, but I mean, climate change is real. It's obviously all of our weather events are getting more extreme. 35 degrees is not unusual anymore.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, I remember back in when I was in primary school, it used to be like there was like some rule that we as kids always used to talk about. Oh, if it gets above, 40,
you get to go home.
Degrees, you get to go home.
It never did though.
Yeah, right. Like,
I was like, it never got to whatever the temperature was because we never got to go home.
Yeah, and like, well, I lived out west, so it was like, you know, out St Mary's Way and in the hills, it was normal if it was like quite warm, right? Yeah. Like it's cooler out close to the water. That's just logic, right? So I find it really interesting, you know, like this whole renewables push, because it's like, even with like just thinking about it on a country basis, right? Like we as a country, even if we had adopted all these ideas to go and say we want to go down the renewables pathway, like if China or India decide, hey, we're just going to keep burning coal, like it doesn't matter.
I know, and right? There's that whole argument, which, you know, I'm a sensible person. You can't just turn off all the coal industry and gas industry overnight. Like that's going to take a really long time for many, many reasons. And then there's obviously social impacts like jobs and stuff that happen because of it. And it's just kind of like, well, it's going to take heaps of time. Like the shift to renewables, I think, is essential, and I am all for it, but I'm not for it overnight.
So to try and like put you in a hard spot. So do you have a preference in terms of wind, solar, or nuclear?
It'd be solar and wind, depending on where you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why not nuclear?
I mean, it's just got a bit of a bad rap. That's a terrible reason.
That's a terrible reason. You're an engineer. Bloody hell.
Fucking hell. I actually don't know too much about like how the nuclear plant is created. So like where the materials and stuff come from to know about broader impacts.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, they're mined just like most other.
Assumingly, yeah.
So
and like solar and wind obviously have negatives as well.
Yeah, the cobalt and nickel and all that sort of stuff. So
and then what do you do with all this stuff after? Yeah.
So then that's the reason why I actually, my preference is for nuclear as opposed to solar and wind. So I feel like, wind turbines, like what do you do with the blades after? Yeah. And they end up just, these big carbon fiber blades just get buried in landfill, and
which
they
needs
don't
to be
decompose.
addressed.
Yeah.
Like somebody needs to think of a better material or better way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then with solar cells, it's like the silicon and the framing and stuff. Like there's so much that hasn't been dealt with yet, which again comes back to the thing of I don't think the answer is overnight. So all of that technology change takes time.
Yeah. Then the other reason why I'm not a huge fan of the renewables per se is like when you look at the amount of land that you need per megawatt of energy generation is substantial,
it's a lot,
right?
Yeah.
Like,
but somewhere like Australia has theoretically, it's far away, but we do have access to land.
Yeah, but like, what are you displacing?
Then there's questions around that. But anything you do in a nuclear plant will also displace something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like that solar can be, people can easily visualize it and people can easily put it on their own house.
Yeah.
So
I think that's actually the best application of solar.
Yeah.
Is going on top of your roof where you're not displacing, large amounts of land. And like, I think it has its uses from a small scale situation, but that when you start to try and scale it, it's hard. It's ridiculous. What are you going to do? Clear forest to go and put solar panels? Like,
there's also like less losses here. You're just using it at point of use, right? It's just easy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else that we need to talk about from the sustainability perspective before we move on?
I can talk about this for ages. So if anyone wants to make their lives greener, come and talk to me, but maybe leave an hour.
So, okay, well, give some other examples of other things that you do around the house. So obviously the worm farm's one thing.
Yeah, worm farm. So a lot of the products that we use on our body or hair or like sun cream and stuff, I'll do a shit ton of research to try and make sure it's the most marine safe or friendly possible. Because obviously,
do you make your own sunscreen?
No, but I do make my own soap.
Okay, so you use tallow, or what do you do?
I'm scared to use tallow.
Okay.
I don't know if I have enough, and then there's the whole question around meat and stuff and emissions. But I use coconut oil and olive oil, and then obviously there's a something
binding
you need
agent
to add to make it soap.
So
that's fun.
Yeah.
So I know what's going down the drain. It's also better for your skin, as in there's no weird chemicals going on your skin, no fragrances and stuff, and that's become important to me since having kids.
Yep.
I only eat meat when I eat with my kids because it's easier to cook one meal.
Okay.
So there's a lot of research both ways about this, but around meat and carbon emissions being obviously more intensive than a vegetarian diet, which depends on where your vegetables are from and blah, 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 blah. But we try and eat locally. I try and eat vegetarian when I'm eating by myself, which actually isn't as much as that sounds. So it's basically when I'm at work.
Okay.
I'll eat like a vegetarian based meal.
Yep.
Of in season locally sourced produce that didn't come in single use plastic. But once it sounds actually quite hard, but once it's kind of ingrained in your, once you know where to get all the stuff from, or it's just in your home process, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think starting would be the hardest thing.
Yeah. Cutting meat was a bit hard. My husband was on board for it before we had the kids. We'd only eat meat from a nutrition point of view, twice a week.
Yep.
Really good source, grass-fed meat. Yep. We'd get the best one we could find. But our kids just love meat. And, as a dad, it's well, if they're going to eat something, you cook it.
Yeah.
Because they probably won't eat the vegetable curry or the salad or something like that you try and cook for yourself.
Actually, we make this my wife makes this lamb stew, and my kids actually really enjoy it.
The lamb part or the other stuff that goes in?
Well, it depends on which child, but
yeah,
it's probably more the lamb part. Just thinking about it, because my eldest Cadence, she was eating it the other day, and she kept asking for more meat, and then my wife was like, "Oh, probably gonna have to add more lamb to this."
Oh, that's
stew.
So funny. Yeah, my kids love it. I wonder if it's a evolution thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm a massive meat eater, right? Like if I was going to do anything, I'd go carnivore as opposed to being vegetarian.
The other way.
Yeah. And like my wife, it's almost like a joke to her when she sees like if there's meat on the table and I just eat 0 vegetables.
That's actually so funny. When my husband cooks for the meat, when I train jiu-jitsu at night, he's in charge of dinner. It's basically meat and eggs.
Yeah.
And maybe like a tiny bit of sauerkraut or something on the side.
Yeah, kimchi. That's great.
Something.
I love, like kimchi, sauerkraut, like that sort of stuff I really enjoy.
Great. And I love that too, but I try to limit it just from a sustainability point of view. But yeah.
Eggs are pretty sustainable, aren't they?
If their chickens are treated well, I suppose.
Isn't it funny that in today's world, right, like the level of affluence that you could say that you have depends on like how well kept the chicken's eggs are that you bought. Like if you're, fairly affluent, you'd be buying like the organic pasture raised chicken eggs.
We get pasture raised.
Right? And then see, here we go. And then if you're one step down, you're probably
like
getting
free range.
Yeah, free range or barn laid chicken eggs.
And then there's cage.
Then basically, if you're like scrimping and saving and like you're, I guess, still aspiring in terms of society, you're buying the cage eggs.
That's so funny. I actually have an egg co-op. So we get a farmer, an egg farmer delivers pasture raised eggs to our house in bulk every fortnight.
Oh wow!
And
so how many do you get?
30 dozen.
Well, 30 dozen a fortnight. Hold on.
A fortnight. I think that's quite a lot.
You mean 3 dozen, or you mean
30? 30
dozen.
30 dozen. You
eggs.
walked past the box on the way in. Yeah, 30 dozen eggs. And then it gets divvied up between a couple of neighbours and my family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't eat them.
Yeah, I was thinking 30 dozen for yourself. Like that's a lot of
Although
eggs.
I think we take like 3 or 4 a week. Dozen.
Yeah.
Everyone eats eggs.
Yeah.
Yum.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of eggs.
Pasture raised.
I'm not quite at that level yet. Look, if they're barn laid
so
or
I'll give you a dozen on the way. The yolks are like super orange.
Yeah, as a result.
Like no chemicals, blah blah. Yeah.
Okay. What else do you guys do?
Oh God, I'm trying to think. I just try and live minimally. I think a lot of my clothes are secondhand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I sew, so I try and mend clothes.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at it.
It's like more expensive to actually like sew your own clothes than it is to buy them.
Oh, it is. It's not a financial thing.
Yeah.
Mending, so that's a big one.
Yeah.
My husband actually laughs at me. I have my favorite bag that I've had for 10 years and it's like literally falling apart. So like one clip broke. So I did a workaround to get around the broken clip and then that bit broke. So I did another workaround and it got to the point where you actually couldn't carry the bag. It was that broken. And he goes, just get a new one.
It's okay.
I'm like, no, it's my favorite and it's still good. I found this leather worker in Maroubra who's charging me like $50 to fix it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm all about that. So he's repairing it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I try and do stuff like that.
What about shoes?
Oh, shoes get wrecked, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I try. I buy like good leather shoes that hopefully can be repaired, but not everything's that easy with shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at that, like, my wife will sort of complain, like, I'll buy, like, expensive things, but, like, I only buy things that I'm actually going to use.
And, like, wreck them.
Yeah.
Like, wear them all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you don't buy, like, I'm over that idea of, like, just buying things to collect and have them sit there and look pretty. Because, like, even with shoes, if you buy, like, too many pairs of shoes and you just let them sit in the cupboard, the glue goes yellow and they fall apart.
Or something, yeah.
Like, even if they're, like, brand new shoes in the box, but over time, like, the rubber, the white parts of the rubber go yellow and all this sort of stuff. So it's just, like, I just buy what I need and then use them till they're, like, broken.
I mean, that happens anyway. Even if you buy heaps of stuff, you always use the same things.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So you might as well just try and buy, like, that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I often, if I see something if I buy something new, which it doesn't happen a lot, but when I do buy something new and I like it, I'll buy heaps of them and just put them away. I'm such an old lady at heart. It's so funny.
That's the Singaporean in you coming out.
Yeah, it's true.
We use the word kiasu, afraid to lose, is like the Hokkien term.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like often reflects in being a cheapskate, but anyway.
I mean, sometimes it is that.
So, okay, pottery.
Oh, yeah.
So
I love it so much.
Yeah, how did this whole pottery thing
I literally did a class with my sister.
Mm.
However long it was, must have been 10 years ago, and then became obsessive compulsive about that too. I I kind of have the same attitude towards the pottery as I do of some of the areas in Jiu Jitsu, but like I was so bad at it that it was fun.
Okay.
Like so bad at it.
So when you say so bad, like
I just couldn't make anything. So I was using a pottery wheel.
Yeah.
An electric pottery wheel, and I just couldn't make anything. And some people are more natural than others. I was not one of those people. And so I'd go home and think about it. I was like, there's like mechanics behind it, like how you actually do it. Like I know there's feel and instinct and all that, but then like what am I actually training my body to do? And so I'd think about it all the time, and then I'd go into the next class and try and make it work. And over time I just got better. And then I got given 2 pottery wheels by a pottery studio that was closing down. I was so lucky because they're so expensive.
Wow.
And just started doing it at home.
Okay.
And then people wanted to buy stuff, and then next minute I'm making cups and bowls for restaurants and cafes, and it was like going wild. This before I had the kids, and at one point I was like, it's getting too much. And then I had the kids, and then I just decided to stop making for cafes and restaurants. It was getting too stressful with the volumes that they wanted.
Yeah. So when a cafe or restaurant is starting up, like what sort of volumes are they chasing?
Well, it depends. I actually found the more, what's the better word for this? Like high-end restaurants needed less. So, and I never really got into the inner workings of a kitchen and never really got to see exactly why, but I'm guessing they just are more efficient with their processes in the kitchen. They just use less. They
just have less customers because they charge more.
Or maybe they have, maybe it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
So it was more in the order of like 20, 30, where some of the other places wanted up to 100.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was quite monotonous making the same thing.
The same thing?
Yeah, like there's a real beauty about it, and you get into a bit of a trance with it, but then if you keep doing it, it can get a bit monotonous, and like you lose the creativity a little bit when you're making 100. Yeah.
And so have you gone to a cafe and then they're like serving you on your stuff?
Yeah.
Like,
I used to always
cool.
visit. It was so cool. Yeah. It was so cool. So I made for some high-end ones like the Bentley Group. They have a couple of restaurants in the city, which was really fun. So I worked with the head chef, Brent Savage there. And then there's some more like hipster cafes that I've made for Paramount Coffee Project and a couple of their chain, just some little coffee cups, which wouldn't be in circulation anymore, which is a shame.
Oh, no.
Because it's been so long. But it was really fun.
So how does that come about? Because you went from basically being really bad at pottery.
I know.
To
and
suddenly
then
having people like come
like
to you, or did you start a business and then like how did it, I'm just trying to get the chronology right.
Yeah,
in
I
my
think
head.
we just started like posting about my stuff on social media, and Instagram was very basic back then, so it was just posts and when you posted and how frequent you posted photos mostly, and cafes were just getting into the whole getting away from just a plain white plate and making their food look beautiful through the frame around it, which is essentially the plate or the bowl or whatever. And there was like a real resurgence of pottery, maybe, and still is there, but like 7 years ago, I reckon. And yeah, and then just once you make for one, you're just kind of in with that circle, and then they just refer you to different people. It was really fun. Yeah.
That's a pretty cool experience.
It was super fun. Yeah. And then now I hardly don't do any of that anymore by choice. Okay. And I've lost all my contacts anyway. But when Indian Park was 6 weeks old, I couldn't find any products where you could put their handprints and feet prints on that I liked. Like they're all super tacky or gold or something. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, I'll just do it. So I did a couple for me. And then I posted about them on Instagram. And then suddenly everyone wanted them. Everyone. So now that's when I make pottery, that's what I make. Yeah. It's plates and cups, like kind of like this one's one that I made with Indy for me, but like I put their handprints on them.
Wait, so this cup here you've made, because that's like a perfect mug.
It's and well, usually I make plates because it's easier to print, but Indy and I wanted to make a cup. This is when she was 4, so it's quite old, but usually I print the kids' feet or hands when they're like under 6 months. Yeah,
that's really cool.
It's so cool. And then parents love it.
At first glance, like I would have just thought that was like a store-bought mug.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
then just obviously you put
prints on. Yeah. And obviously you need to know how the pottery process works and all of that. But like people love it. Yeah. I never would have thought. I just made them for me to start with.
That's cool.
Yeah. Now I have about 50 of them of different ages, like the kids growing up.
That's nice.
Just in case they break and stuff. But yeah, they're super popular.
So then when it comes to like getting the clay and stuff, like
so I use Australian clay, so it's just easier to source.
Yep.
But
have you ever gone foraging to try and find like clay in the nature?
I did once when I was on like a pottery camp thing, but I don't really know enough about the makeup of the ground to know if it was actually going to fire. I mean, and like you'd have to experiment with it. Yeah. But then you also couldn't reproduce it. I guess there's a beauty with that, but also
limited numbers.
Yeah. It's like, how much can I dig?
Yeah. I went on this just funny little rabbit hole when you talk about sustainability, where I was like looking into all like, you know, all these different prepper project type stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you can just basically, if you don't have salt at home, like go to the ocean and
get it yourself.
Get a bucket of salt water and come home and
like evaporate the
water and have sea salt.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
you could.
Yeah.
and then what I realized was like, I don't have time to do any of this shit.
Yeah. But like this much salt, I feel like you'd have to do a whole like liters of water to get like a sprinkle. That's pretty funny.
And then you know how much gas you're using or like electricity you use to actually evaporate it all down. Work. So it's like, I'll just go to the shop.
And salt's like, if you get the cage version of salt, it'd be like $1 a bag or something like
table salt.
Table salt, white table salt.
Yeah, okay. So that's how the pottery thing came about. And then so you mentioned like that allowed you and your sister to sort of connect, you know, a little bit further, obviously through this mutual appreciation for pottery.
Yeah, I think it was an age thing as well. Yeah. Like, you know, a 21-year-old and 24-year-old are into the same things. But 10-year-old and a 13-year-old are very different when you're a girl. So, and a boy, I suppose. But Well,
so I've got a 7-year gap to my brother. My brother's 7 years older than me.
Yeah.
And I used to try and get into all the shit that he was into.
See, it's like you're just into different things, but maybe that brings you together in some situations.
Yeah, well, like I think if anything, I was probably the annoying one for him.
That's so funny.
Right? Because like he's like a 17-year-old want to do 17-year-old things.
That's so funny.
And here's his little 10-year-old brother, you know, high-fiving with his mates and like acting like he's so cool because he's 10 hanging out and doing 17-year-old things.
That's so funny. I think if you asked my sister why we weren't close during high school, she'd say that I was really mean to her, but I don't actually remember that.
Okay. Mean in what sense? Like were you just
I don't know, like I was too cool. I was in a bit of a too cool group at school.
Okay.
Which I'm not proud of, but...
Why do you say that you're not proud of it?
I think it really took my focus away from school.
Okay.
And like I could have easily gotten into bad groups.
Yeah.
And maybe not be where I am now. Who knows?
Yeah. So I guess when you say that, like are there friends that you might have had in those groups that, you know, went down some bad pathways or something?
Sometimes, or more like, I mean, experimenting with different things, like, which is kind of natural for teenagers, but I guess, like sex, drugs, rock and roll, right? Like it was kind of that thing. I could have gone down a bad path then. A lot of those girls don't, I don't know heaps about their lives now, but maybe lack some focus in their 20s and like I was very focused in my 20s, which I think is a good thing.
You are doing this KPMG thing and then going, shit, I actually don't want to be here anymore.
I was focused on different things. I kept changing my mind. But I was trying things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it could have ended differently.
So I guess when you say trying things, were there any positive experiences? And I guess was there any like really negative experiences that you had?
Oh, I just feel like girls' schools, and I think I'll tell you more when Indy's in high school, but I feel like girls' schools are like a jungle. Like it's really hard to navigate, and the groups are really distinct and sometimes brutal. Like and female bullying can be like, or any bullying, but school bullying is just horrible. Yeah. And I feel like in my particular year, like there's just groups, and if you weren't in those groups, like sometimes it could ruin your school
experience.
Time. Yeah.
Well, it's almost like you want to be in those groups so that you just, you know, can hide amongst everybody
else.
else.
Yeah, and I kind of didn't think for myself sometimes. Just the group was doing that thing, and so I did it. And it didn't have to be anything controversial. It could have been like, oh, the group is sitting here for lunchtime and we're doing this today. Like I just did it.
Yeah.
Without even thinking for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or we're all going to wear our socks like high today. And anyone else who doesn't wear them high, like you're a loser. Like, I don't know, there's like stuff like that. And you're 12, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, that sounds really stupid now.
Yeah.
But when you're 12, it's not.
This is your world.
This is your world. Everything is your world. And like all these little things, and they're like, oh, someone was mean to me today, and they ripped a page out of my book, or they like stole something from my bag, or they like pushed me on the way like through the corridor. Yeah, girls are a little bit less physical. So it's not like,
you know, when you reflect on that, right? Was there a point where you sort of, and the reason, and I'll give you some context here, right? So like, you know, when I was in high school, like there was a pretty distinct point for me where I sort of withdrew from the bigger groups quite a bit, just because my parents were going through a tough time, and I was still trying to navigate that for myself in terms of how I dealt with that. So then like there was a period in like when I went into like years 11 and 12 where rather than like playing with like the big group of guys at lunchtime and stuff like that, I might be like in the music room, you know, playing music with just one other mate and doing things
because
like
that's
that.
what you needed for you at the time.
Yeah, I think, you know, I just I don't think I really understood exactly what was going on. And I guess, you know, I don't know if you listened to the podcast I did with Gabe, but Gabe brought up this memory of his when he was 6 and watching his mum like ripping up photos of the dad because he had done the wrong thing. Like I had that exact same experience, but I would have been like 16 or 17. And I didn't really know, you know, how to deal with it. And so my I guess, outlet was to just, you know, work, like do things. It was martial arts because I was always into martial arts. So, you know, I was pretty crazy back then. Like when I say crazy, like there was times where, like if my mum, if my parents, when I could drive and I'd want to go to training or whatever, if they didn't let me use the car, I'd just run there, like 7Ks.
Just a 7K.
Yeah, like just run there.
Warm up.
No, I'd be fucking struggling. Like I'd have don't make it feel like it was any like I was like this hero like Baywatch star running down the
like
street,
dying down the street.
I'm like talking like, you know, didn't warm up at all, shin splints, going fuck my life. Why did I do this?
That's so
I'm gonna make it to training. Like, you know,
I'm getting to training.
Yeah, I'm getting to training. Like I just needed like that violent outlet, right? And like we had some pretty like brutal training sessions in the sense of like we used to do this exercise that's called knock arms, where you're literally like knocking arms against somebody else. And it's good because like you actually, I learn a lot about the human body doing some of these things, because it's like, most people go, why would you want to do that? It sounds dumb. Like, you know, you're just bashing your arms against,
dumb,
you're bashing your arms against
Ouch.
somebody else. But like your arms actually then get stronger as a result of it. Like there was a period there where like
that was the point, right?
That was the point.
Yeah,
to toughen your arms. And so there was a guy there that was bigger than me and was, I guess, more senior than me in terms of how long he'd trained. And I made it a point that every week I would like smash arms against this guy. And then
did it work?
Yeah, like this was like I there was points where like in high school when I'm like trying to study the next day and I couldn't write because I'd be like that shaky. And I'd have like purple bruises up my arms, right? And then I think over like maybe, it didn't take long. I think it was probably only maybe like a couple of months of doing that every week nonstop. So, you know, smashing my arms to the point where they'd be bruised for 3-4 days, but then by the end of the following week, I could go again, right? Because I used to have training on a Friday night.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do. And then like after like probably 2 months or so, my arms just didn't bruise anymore. Like I could smash them really, really hard.
So it worked.
It worked. Like that's one of the things. Like most people would never get to that point because they wouldn't continue with it long enough to get that benefit. They'd just go, oh, my arms hurt, I'll never do that again. Right? Whereas I was a retard. And
so I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yeah. And then, but as a result of continually doing it, like, I was torturing myself.
Yeah.
Like that's the reality of what I was doing. I was like pushing my body to its limit because I didn't know how to deal with all this other stuff that was going on. And so then, but as a result of that, like I found the positive benefit of like, now I had arms that wouldn't bruise. And then when I'd go and do that to like the other students, they would feel the pain and I wouldn't feel the pain. So I developed a resilience as a result of it, right? So, I've gotten really off track, but I guess what I was sort of saying about that was like, like there was a point where I felt like I had just like matured slightly differently just because of things that were going on in my life.
Yeah, and just different to your group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so like I just, what I needed wasn't to like, be out there sort of like doing the same old things, but like I just needed to have like time alone and playing music and doing that sort of stuff. So I guess for you, when you think back on your time in those groups, like was there a point where it was like, what am I doing?
I think around towards the end,
yeah,
I often felt like I was needed to play down like my like what I knew in class and stuff because of the group I was in. And then towards the end, I don't know what happened necessarily, but I was kind of like, well, I actually want to do well.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want to do, but I guess I'm at school to learn, so maybe I should just try and do well, or I should just not be here.
Yeah.
And so, towards the end, I finally had the maturity to kind of just be book smart.
Yep.
Yeah, and not be embarrassed.
Did you lose friends as a result of it?
After school, like I'm pretty much not friends with any of them anymore.
Okay.
Yeah,
yep.
Which is a real shame because they're all actually nice people. It's not a reflection on that. It's just you just grow different, like you just grow differently to people and go down different paths.
Yeah.
Right? And like life's different. I mean, it's been so long since I've been at school now.
Yeah.
You're forced to be together every day.
Yeah.
For 7 years or whatever it is. And then suddenly you're like, actually, I can choose who I want to hang out with now.
You guys are gone.
Yeah, we're actually like not interested in that many things together anymore, which is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I see them, like have a quick conversation, there's like no hard feelings and I wouldn't say anything bad about them or anything like that. It's not like that. It's just different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funnily enough, I'm actually catching up with some of my high school mates tonight.
Are you?
Yeah, but like when I catch up with my high school mates, it sort of feels just like nothing's changed.
That's cool.
It's just we're old now.
Just old now.
Just fucking old now.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a like girl boy thing, or maybe it's just a personal experience I have. Yeah, I've got like 3 school friends, and they weren't in that group.
Yeah.
Yeah, so weird.
Are those school friends Asian out of curiosity?
No.
It's like Beck just like
hangs out with one racial group. No, I don't share that. I actually don't have many Asian friends, which is weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think it's just one of those things. Like some people, or even with my kids, right? Like, my eldest daughter's group of friends are all Asian.
Because she's just grown.
I don't know.
Them?
It's just that was the group that she hangs out with. Right. And then my son, like he's all his mates are Aussies.
Great.
If
you just like look past the cultural thing, like if you they're just gravitating towards a certain human, right?
Yeah. I think there's like obviously my son likes to do physical things. So it's funny, like his best mate in preschool was a boy named Buster. Yeah, all right. And then so like as soon as like my wife told me the name, I was like, yeah, he's a white boy.
Yeah, definitely.
and then he's like in school now in kindergarten, and one of his friends' name is Brock, and I'm like,
Brock,
yeah,
definitely
a white boy. But it's cool,
it's such a tough name.
Yeah, right. Like you don't typically hear of Asians with those names.
No,
they get lumped with names like to be ultra racist here. No.
I'm like, is Rebecca? Desmond.
Desmond, Nigel.
I think my parents were going to call me Raymond if I was a boy.
Raymond.
I think Raymond.
Yeah, it's a very Asian name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raymond.
Yeah.
Thank God I was not a boy. Sorry, Raymonds out there.
So I guess I'm also curious about your relationship with your husband.
Yeah.
So I guess how did you guys meet?
Through touch football.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was 1,000 times better than me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. He was equally like obsessive compulsive. So yeah, we both just like loved it. And then we had like a group of friends who were also obsessed. And then, and then I think at the Roundhouse one night, they had the uni parties at UNSW. We hooked up at the uni party that was like start of session or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that must be like 15 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah, showing my age, but yeah, it was a long time ago.
Wait, are you older or younger than me? How old are you?
Mid-30s.
Oh, I'm older than you.
Yeah, older than you.
I was going to say, yeah.
Some days I feel my age.
Well, yeah, like I've just turned 40, so it was like, oh yeah, midlife crisis,
huge.
boys. Let's catch up. We're going hard tonight.
That's too funny. Yeah, and then we both stopped playing touch football now. Yeah, but he's got his own. He's an ultra runner.
Oh wow! So he does marathons and stuff.
Beyond that, like
So
the crazy ones,
like 100-mile type runs.
He hasn't done 100-mile yet, but he's done 2 or 300 kilometer ones, which is fucking insane.
Yeah,
like I'd struggle to run down the street.
Over what period of time?
He wasn't happy with his time, but I think it was 14 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, 100 kilometers, 14 hours.
14 hours
in the Blue Mountains.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I think
obviously
you've got to be a really special personality to do that shit.
Oh, he acknowledges that. He seeks those dark places. Like he says that.
Yeah.
He wants to go to the, what does he call it? The pain cave or whatever it's called.
So, okay. So has he always been into that sort of stuff? Or
Only
was this like
since touch football, yeah. He loves the fitness associated with it. And I think the mental release from running.
Yep.
Not that for him, sure. But when I go running, there's no mental release.
Yeah.
The whole time I'm like, when is this over? When is this over? When is this over?
Yeah.
So it's different for different people. But yeah, he loves it. So he's training like 100 kilometers a week.
Wow.
Broken up over lots of different runs. But he essentially, like a lot of people do say to me, like, how do you spend so much time training jiu-jitsu? I'm like, well.
He's always out running.
I'm like, he does the same thing. So we kind of understand.
Yeah.
And they're both very kind of obsessive sports. Like you're either in or you're out. Like to be an ultra runner, you can't just run once a week. It doesn't work like that. And most people who are into jiu-jitsu are into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, autistically into it.
Yeah.
Sounds horrible to say, but no, I think there's that element of like, embracing the fact that it's something that you may never get good at, right? Like no matter how good you are, you're always going to feel like there's going to be someone out there that will fuck you up. And as a result of that, you're never going to feel good about where you are in the sport.
Yeah. So it's like, eternal growth.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah. Running's the same, I suppose.
Yeah, until the wheels fall off.
Until they fall off. I don't know, would the jiu-jitsu body wheels fall off first or the runner wheels?
Yeah, okay. Depends on what your self-care like is with jiu-jitsu, right? Because, most people in jiu-jitsu don't do great self-care.
Yeah, that's true. Because they'd rather be spending time on the mats.
Yeah, you want time on the mats. And, sometimes the lifestyle choices are dictated by, how competitive you want to be.
Yeah.
And so some of those choices obviously may come back to bite you at some stage,
that's
depending on how you do it. But, I think it's a pretty interesting sport from that perspective where, the growth of it has been so immense. And I think, when people get it, they get it, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, in thinking about that for you, like as a female coming into the sport, right? Like, you didn't find it daunting?
Oh, it's super intimidating. I still feel like most classes I walk in and I'm like, am I going to die today? Or, the answer is yes, like I'm going to get smashed. But especially any lightweight that walks into any gym is probably thinking like that. How badly am I going to get smashed today? So it's intimidating. And then it's kind of like, well, are there going to be any other girls there? 5, 0. If not, that's okay. Are there going to be any lightweights? Am I going to get smashed every single roll? Or just some? It helps when you're familiar with the gym. So once you're comfortable with the gym setting and people find people that you're okay with rolling for whatever reason, because you want there to be mutual benefit, right? You want both of you to get something out of it. I don't really want a pity roll. But I'd take it sometimes. It's fine. but yeah, I think it's still intimidating now. So and especially at a good gym like Grappling Education, like I really respect all the new white belts that come in because I'm like, you guys are in for a tough ride, especially if you're light or female. Yeah, like it's gonna be hard. Yeah, like, so much respect for you for like continuing to come back.
So so how did you end up at GE?
Oh, this was like one of the most. I feel so like privileged that I even get to make this choice, but I got in my blue belt, and me and my main training partner Chloe, we really wanted to expand our game into like leg locks and stuff, and we were probably two of the more experienced people at this gym at the time. And it was a very small gym, so we weren't getting like a huge diversity of roles. I think there was like 15 to 20 people, and everyone was white or blue, and no one was into leg locks, which is also fine. I'm not anti-leg lockers, that's okay. And so we just sought out another gym. Chloe actually jumped first, and then I eventually went as well. But it was one of the hardest. I felt like I was breaking up with my coach. Like
Was
we
it?
had conversations about it, and then one day I was just like, I'm doing it. We're breaking up.
Yeah. Wow.
It was horrible. It was really horrible.
So
And
okay, so yeah, like this is interesting, right? Because yeah, there's a lot of people that get stuck in a certain place just because, like, yeah, they feel like this
guilty.
guilt,
Yeah.
right? And you know, a lot of traditional jiu-jitsu gyms, like, they have these mantras of loyalty, honor, respect.
I know, and
right?
thankfully I wasn't at one of those gyms, but the underlying principles of loyalty should remain everywhere, but it doesn't mean loyalty necessarily I can't move. Like, I'm still loyal to my coach, that guy that taught me everything I knew at that gym.
Yeah.
That place just, I wasn't growing there anymore.
Yeah.
And that gym's actually changed a lot since then. So ironically, maybe I would be growing there now. But
Yeah. Have you gone back to visit?
a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, when I'm just learning leg locks and they're working on everybody, it's not really something that's developing my game. And then I walk into a gym like Grappling Education, I'm like, I'd be lucky to enter legs. So it's very different. And so my game's had to change a lot since I went there. And, like, everyone's been super welcoming. And there's, like, so many different people you can choose who to roll. If I don't feel like rolling the 100-kilo guy today, I can pretty easily avoid it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in gym and 15 to 20 people, like, if he's there, like, probably one of 6 people, I'm probably going to have to somehow roll him. Like, or
it's my rest round.
Yeah.
I need a rest round.
And as hard as a lightweight, like,
Yeah.
So, it's been the best thing. And Keller and Jeremy were super welcoming. And from, like, week 1 or 2 took me on, like, as if I'd been there forever.
Yeah.
So, been the best decision.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, like, every gym has its own little culture.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think the gym owners that have, like, the best mentalities about it, they welcome competition. You know, like, quite a few of the coaches that I know or have trained at their places, like, they've always been that kind of person where it's like, yeah, like, you know, if anything, competition is going to help to make our product better.
Yeah, and the standard in general better, right?
Yeah.
And then people enjoy it more because the standard's higher, and then all of the flow and effects from there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, sometimes it's just it's circumstances. Like, it depends on the timetable, right?
Yeah.
So if you know, like, and that was the case for me. You know, like, I can't, I'm not doing nights anymore. So as a result of not doing nights anymore, it's like
you're limiting yourself to these classes and these people.
Yeah. Or it's like you know, I have to try and get work in when I go visit gyms for work. Like, you know, when I go do outer stuff, like, I might stay for a little bit longer and do their morning session, which is kind of cool because, like, I came from a really traditional martial arts background.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like, I know the feeling of, like, breaking up with somebody who's like well, for me, it was like my father figure, right?
Yeah. And who obviously dedicated a lot of time, energy, and all of that to you personally. And then it's almost like, and I'm sure it's obviously not like this in all situations, but it could feel like, oh, fuck you, I'm going.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to take all that and I'm going to move. Like,
well, yeah, for me, it was a 21-year relationship.
It's a long time.
Right? Like, I'd known this guy for more than half my life at the point in time when we had to, you know, sort of say, okay, we're going different pathways. And it was only because, yeah, like, and I think I explained this when I did the episode with Keller. It's like, I could understand his perspective too, because he'd come across from a different country and, like, probably lost a lot of time with his dad.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, you know, he wanted to have a really close bond with his students and keep everybody really, really close.
And so when you see it from that perspective, you understand why he may feel a certain way.
Yeah, and why he would be upset, right? Whereas for me, like, I'm looking at it also from the other angle of, like, yeah, but, like, you also got to remember that even though, like, you had a choice to whether to stay with your dad or whether to go to a different country.
Yeah.
And you left. Right?
So it's the same.
And same. I've got that choice too. I can stay with you or I can leave. And especially because you're not giving me the choice to stay, right? Like, it was more like it was like kind of like an ultimatum. It's like, you can go and train wherever you like, but then you can't train here anymore. And so then I was like, okay, well, yeah, I viewed that as, like, it's basically like saying, you know, you can go and travel the world, but you can't come home.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, you know, the world's a big place. Like, I'm still young. Guess I got to travel. Right?
Yeah. See ya.
So, you know, like, I'm probably like the ultimate creonch. Like, I'm literally at so many different gyms.
That's so
and
funny.
Visiting so many different places, but like
Which is
it's
the
also
new age view as well now, like in terms of training.
crazily enough, it's become my job,
And now it's become your job.
right?
Yeah.
Like would have been just before, maybe I think when I was like, it would have been 2 years ago. Like basically, let me think. I can't remember. Time just fucking escapes me now with kids. But anyway, it was a few years ago. I had this idea, right? And originally, before I started all so I had the podcast, but like I was thinking about doing some other channels.
Yeah.
And I was going to do something fairly similar to I don't know if you know of MMA Shredded, Jeff Chan.
Oh yeah.
So I was gonna do something similar to him, right?
Cool.
And I had this idea in my head that I was gonna start this channel, and I was gonna call it 40-year-old Ronan. And I was gonna wait till I was 40. I was gonna quit my job,
Now.
and then and I was gonna travel the world and just do martial arts.
That's so funny.
Right? Didn't think about the kids
Yeah.
right? But that was like a little silly idea that I had. And actually, shout out to my mate Jason Tran. He's like a videographer. But like he and I, we always bounce back about different ideas and things like that. And I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And then in the end, it's actually sort of come true, but just not in the way that I pictured it. Like I don't need to do,
which is so funny.
Like I'm doing content, but the content's not for me. The content's for Alta.
Yeah.
Right. And I get to travel the world, and I get to go to different gyms
arts. and
do martial arts. But it's just funny how those things,
it just happened without you trying.
Well, no, I tried.
You tried.
I tried,
Well,
right? But I just,
maybe you're just born for it.
No. Okay, how about this, right? And this is probably going to go into one of my deep rabbit holes, right? But I saw this this clip came up on my socials today on Instagram, and it was a reel, and it's Morgan Freeman acting in some movie. I don't know if you've seen this one, but it's basically the scene's something about the ladies are having a tough time or something like that. And I think Morgan Freeman's playing the role of God, and he's basically the premise of the scene is something like, do you think when people pray for courage that they suddenly become courageous, or are they given the opportunity to be courageous?
Yeah.
Right? And it's likewise. So, you can apply that to so many things in your life, like times when things have been difficult and you need money and you're praying for money, right? Or something to help you.
Yeah.
And it's not that you may necessarily get that thing directly, but you might get it indirectly. You might get the opportunity to do some of those things, right? And so I'd always and I've told this story, so I'll try and give you the brief version. But here I am working in a car dealership, running this car dealership, driving this beautiful brand new M3 down the M5 on my way home, and I'd be there in the car cruising at 100 and something k's an hour, and I'd be like, God, if there is something else more that you want me to have in life or do in life, then give me a sign, right? Because and don't get me wrong, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I'm in the fucking best cars. I'm making great money. I love the people that I work with, and I love the business and all that sort of stuff. But if this is all there is to life, I'm cool with that too. But
did you get a sign?
Yeah.
What was the sign?
Lost my job.
Did you?
Is that,
do you reckon that was the sign, or do you think you made that the sign? That was going to happen regardless?
No, that wasn't going to happen regardless.
You don't think it was going to happen?
So, okay, unless you could predict that COVID was going to happen. And,
I see what you're saying.
And then you could predict that me standing up for myself and 10 other workers in my business and saying, hey, I don't think it's right that we should try and force people to get whatever they want. It's their health choices, let them decide. And I don't think it's right that I have to go and tell these guys, hey, you either get the jab or you lose your job. Right? And, that didn't sit well, because I guess the board of that group decided that they want people that are just going to say yes to them, and that's not me.
Yeah.
And I'm no longer at that point in my life where I'm just going to say yes to people. I'm going to tell you what I think.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I got made redundant. Now, how do let me just put it this way. How can you make a dealer principal or general manager of a business redundant? Who's going to run it?
Yeah, it's a big call.
Technically, you can't. Because if you make somebody redundant, you can't replace them.
Oh, so hence you're saying it was a sign.
Well, it's a big call to do that.
Yeah.
Right? Because now, technically, you can't replace them. Right? For at least 18 months or whatever.
Yeah.
And look, I know that they replaced me. At the end of the day, I don't lament that. Yeah. I just viewed that as, okay, I'm meant to do something more. Right? Then I went down this massive political rabbit hole. did that, and realized like, I really enjoyed my time, and I learned a lot about politics, and I learned a lot about doing your own research and doing all that sort of stuff. So I don't regret any of that. I think they're all really, really great things. But I feel like my opportunity to do something more has always been in the podcast, and in just, sharing people's stories and talking about life. And it's not to like preach or to like, say to people, you have to live your life in this particular way. It's more to understand that, hey, everybody has their own choices to make. And as you go throughout the journey, you're going to realize that there are things that will resonate with other people that like they might be a different circumstance, but maybe you resonate with their upbringing.
Yeah.
Or maybe they become successful at something that you want to be successful at. I had AJ from Adipix on my podcast. I don't know, it would have been like only maybe a year ago. And now he was just at UFC 298 shooting for media, right? And like Far, she was on my podcast right after IVF Worlds, and now she's like
super Insta famous now.
Insta famous. She's like 60-something K and growing.
I love her.
Renato, like, it's funny. When Renato really started working on his Instagram, it was after a conversation that we had when I was fighting up at XFC. We were all sitting in the hotel room, and I'd shown the guys that like one of my Instagram accounts, this site that nobody knows about, started taking off. And then like by the end of the weekend, it went from like 17K or something like that to like 55K.
So good.
And like, like like Renato was asking me questions. Oh, Johnny, how did you do this? And I was just explaining to him like what I was focusing on. And like he's just taken that to the nth degree. And like he's just cracked 100K, like, and he deserves it.
Yeah.
Right? So all of those things, like, I think everybody has the choice to make that decision about, okay, whether you've had bad things happen in your life or not, and you might have had really good things in your life, but like the choice is, okay, what do I want my life to look like from this point? Because like you can't change the past. I don't regret any of the things that have happened to me or that have happened in my life. I don't say that, nothing bad will happen in the future. Like, of course those things are going to happen, but I have this overwhelming optimism in the sense that things will always work out for the right reasons.
Yeah, even if it doesn't seem like it at the time.
Yeah. And like, trust me, like I can say that now, having gone through and going back to zero.
Yeah.
And being unemployed and having nothing and thinking about how am I going to put food on the table for my kids, my family. Hard. Right? Like as a dad, like you feel there is no more useless feeling than feeling like you can't provide.
When you put it down to the very simplest reasons, that's like that's your only job.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Fully get that.
Yeah. And so having gone through that, like I don't think I would be as strong-willed or as optimistic as I am now without having gone through that.
Yeah. There's always like a really big lesson, and then all the positives that come out of it. You just need to wait for it to be in hindsight to see them sometimes.
Yeah. Right. And so like when you sort of reflect on that, it's kind of like if somebody had told me that all these things were going to happen, I still wouldn't have believed them anyway.
No, because it just sounds
you
extreme.
You have to experience it for yourself.
You got to go through it, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, everyone has them. So like it just might not be that exact situation, right? So
the checkpoints.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, for you, like it's like you've had quite a few of those checkpoints yourself, the whole IVF thing.
Yeah.
The accounting thing, that's a checkpoint.
It's a checkpoint.
It is a checkpoint because you make that choice that, hey, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then you now got to go down a different pathway. Getting to the end of your tether in terms of like, okay, like, yeah, it's the principle. Like I've been done wrong and like, I don't want this to hurt me anymore. So I'm going to exit the scenario.
And there's no like sad stories necessarily like associated with it. No feelings in that sense. It's just, they're all growth stories and explains where your head is at after having gone through it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, one last little question to sort of, wrap things up. And I'm curious about this because, you're a serial competitor, I would say.
Oh my God. Okay, keep going. Am I?
Well, you enjoy competition.
I do. Do you know why though? I feel like this is, one of the main reasons why I think I like Jiu Jitsu so much is it is a team sport. But your performance is your performance and nobody can change that. Whereas in all the other sports I've played, netball and touch football, like you can have a bit of a shit day on the field
and have somebody
still
else carry
win. Like people can carry you, your whole team can carry you, and you might still feel like, oh, I did pretty good because our team won and blah blah blah. Whereas when you step out on that competition mat, it's just you, and like your coach can't save you. They're supporting you, but there's nothing they can actually do. Same as your teammates, they can't actually save you. And I love the mental challenge around that. That's why I do it. I also so that's one reason, but I also do it because being female and lightweight, it's really hard to get somebody who's exactly your situation in the gym to benchmark where you're at. And not to say I want to make sure I'm better than that person. It's not that, but I want to make sure that thing I've been working on, does it actually work on someone my size and my experience, or does it not? Because it works on all of the lighter people or the less experienced people, and it doesn't work on all the heavyweights and all the black belts. So I don't actually know where that is. And in competition, nobody gives you anything. You it either works or it doesn't, right? So I like that. And so then taking away lessons from that is what the second main reason why I do it. And I guess once you start competing, it just keeps happening, and like the adrenaline also from competing is like no other. The emotion, the relief, the either disappointment or sense of being really proud after a match is also like no other. Like you can't reproduce that. That's why I do it.
Yeah, they're great reasons to do it. Yeah, like I think there's only really two ways to sort of benchmark yourself. It's either you need to be out traveling like I am and getting to go to a whole bunch of different gyms. Or you got to be competing. You got to
be competing. And I'm like, I mean, especially recently, like I'm on a bit of a losing streak at the moment. Got my purple belt and then I've lost the last 3 matches. I could easily give up competing. And I've gone through this mental challenge over the last few months, naturally, I think. But then I don't get all the benefits that I just mentioned. So if an opportunity comes up, I'll do it. I'm also lucky that, the women's Jiu Jitsu pool is smaller. So maybe more opportunities come up than otherwise if I was a male equivalent, and you can just take what you get, right? Subversion was like the best thing. I had the best time. It's also fun. I lost. I had so much fun. Like if you'd asked me straight after the match, I would have said it was fun.
It was points? Was it points?
It was ref's decision.
And that was versus Jacinta.
Who's like not her specifically, but that type of competitor is my nemesis. Top heavy pressure, MMA fighter, relentless,
scrappy.
Loves a scramble. I lose to them all the time, and that's okay. Like I take a lot of lessons from that. But I had the best time. So fun.
Did you like the lights and the stage and all that?
Yeah, and I just think the focus, like I could hear Keller like super clear, whereas in a local tournament, it's like, I actually can't hear much.
There's so much going on.
So much going on. The energy's different. On stage, it's just you and your head, and then there's somebody talking to you, and you can choose to take their advice or not, but I can hear the advice. And I'm like just focused. I can hear my breathing. I can hear Jacinta's breathing. There's like a different energy about it. You don't get that in local comps. And obviously the stage and stuff's pretty fun.
The cool thing about, so shout out to Matt and George from Subversion, because they put on a really good show. And it's like the one thing I would say about when you go to the jiu-jitsu crowd is very different at Subversion.
Oh, so different.
It's like, I would say it's almost like the crowd in Japan, right? Because in Japan, they're very respectful of martial arts, so they don't actually make a lot of noise. And then, barring the odd person that yells out, grab his dick and twist it.
That was funny.
Typically, nobody's really like, maybe the Baja guys. The Baja guys do chant a little. But, everybody else.
And the Sydney Wrestling Academy crew for Ali every single time. Love that.
But that's usually during the walk. That's
true.
Walkout,
it's very
right?
specific.
It's specific. It's either during the walkout or maybe in the last 30 seconds of the match.
Not disrespectful at all to the activity.
Adds to the environment, right? But like, from the flip side, it's like, you can hear a pin drop.
Oh, it's actually like that though. I felt like I could hear everything. Like, and just the breathing and just like reading where Jacinta was at. Like, you don't get that. In other situations. And then there's like the mental part of that. Like, is she tired? Like, she's not fucking tired. Get smashed. Am I tired? Yep. Does she know? Probably.
No, it's always, everybody gets in their own head about that. It's like, and I see this all the time in MMA, right? Like, it's like, when no matter how you're feeling in there, the other person's feeling the same.
Of course.
Right? Like it's just, you get in your own head that, oh, I'm tired, but they're not. No. Go and look at them. They're fucking tired too.
Yeah. That's something we've been really doing well in we've got like a bit of a girls wrestling group going on Wednesdays and Fridays. And I think what we do really well is after a takedown or attempted takedown or whatever it is, like most times we kind of have a really quick conversation on what that feel like. Because sometimes you don't actually know. Like, was it close? Like, did I even off balance you?
Yeah.
Like, was it even threatening? Like, you don't actually know because all you know is you put in effort and you tried something and you don't actually know how it feels on the other side, which comes down to that mental part. Because when you're actually competing, you don't know what that person's feeling like. They might be just about to tap or get swept or like whatever it is, but you really have no idea.
Yeah.
So there's like, it's a bit of a bluff sometimes.
It depends on their poker face.
Yeah. So sometimes it's good to have a conversation about it so you actually get some feedback.
Yeah. Janice has like one of the best poker faces.
Oh my God.
She gives you nothing. she literally gives you nothing. And then it's like, you know, there's been one time where it's like I've been like putting so much pressure on her and I'm thinking, is she going to tap? Like, it's got to be close.
Is it close though?
Yeah.
Is it not? Like, I don't know.
And then she like gives me like this deadpan look. I'm like, maybe it's not.
Maybe it's not.
And then one time she did tap and then she was like, yeah, there was a lot of pressure. I'm like, you didn't show it. Like I was thinking, fuck, like
she's good at it.
Yeah, she just gives me nothing.
So good at it.
Yeah,
I love
it's fun
her
though.
too.
But yeah. All right. So let's wrap it up there. So if people want to find you, how do they find you?
I recently created a Bec Fitzgerald Instagram account because it was all the Jiu Jitsu was flooding my business Pottery page. So it's all separate now. I also make pottery.
So if people want to contact you for commissions, where should they reach out to?
If you just look at Hi There Choo Choo or Choo Choo, I think on Instagram it should pop up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing the Choo is like the original surname?
Oh, yeah. That's not clear, is it, at all?
No.
Okay, Fitzgerald is my husband's name and now my name, but I was Chua, Chua.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I'm related to Casey, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's
like legit actually related or just
I don't
because
know.
you got the
He
same
was
surname?
similar surname, so he reckons we're like, I don't know,
Is he Singaporean?
X generation related. I don't know. I didn't ask him. Anyway, yeah,
Chua,
Chua, Chua, Choo Choo.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you.
See you.